Excellent, David. Let's go to our next session. David Stone. Welcome, and Mayank. Awesome. Hey, Mayank.
Hi, Chip.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Excellent. So, David, we love to see your amazing new HPE graphic behind you that we heard about a little bit about that as we were getting ready. So excited to see it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah,
I'm going to let you guys take it away, and I will step out and see you in a minute.
Hey, thank you, Chip. And yes, as Chip mentioned, it's fresh 3D printed using HP technology. It's great to be here in this session with you, David. Let's kick it off with a round of introductions. I'm the CEO and founder of Workspan. And at Workspan, it has been a delightful experience for us to be working with our customers to provide a platform that powers modern ecosystems. And with me today on this session that we'll be hearing from is David Stone, who's the Vice President and General Manager, Worldwide Ecosystem Sales Leader at HPE. David, welcome, and would you introduce yourself to our audience today?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. And first, I'm honored and humbled to be part of this exclusive group, and very excited, and to be talking to you all. So look, my background isn't an alliance person in general, right? I'm kind of new to alliances and ecosystems over the last 3 years, but my background, I think, set me up well for this. So a couple of key things in my career. One, I started my career as an officer in the Navy on a nuclear submarine, and a great way to start. But more importantly, I thought it was really helpful because half the time I'm dealing with multiple partners, I feel like I'm always underwater. And so learning to deal with that on a submarine is really helpful. So that was part one. And then the next part of my career was really as a consultant and just solving really complicated problems with structure and rigor and discipline. And as you look at the ecosystem, how you measure influence, how you reward people, how you put structure around the co-sell program, I really feel like that management consulting background is really, really helpful. And again, I don't have years of experience like most of the folks on the call, that have it. So to me, that consulting skill set is really useful to address the problems that I think are inherent in many of these co-sell type of operations.
David, that's a unique combination of managing under stress at the Navy
Yep.
with an out-of-the-box thinking as a consulting partner. No wonder you're bringing some interesting ideas to bear. Now, interestingly, one of HP's top stated priorities for next year is, building out a world-class ecosystem organization.
Yep.
So, can you tell us about this mission and what does this mean for HP and your partners?
Yeah, no, thank you. Great question. So look, I run the partner ecosystem within Hewlett Packard Enterprise. So we've got about 12 to 14 really large partners. So these are your global SIs and the top ISVs. Those are the ones that take primary preference. We also have a very large tail of 300 smaller ISVs that we manage the technology partner program and stuff for my team. But within all that, right, we've got 3 very clear strategic objectives within our organization. And the first is to continue to grow the business, which is pretty natural. And we've had some pretty good growth over the last couple of years. And so we want to continue that momentum. The second hits really nice to the poll that you guys just had, but it's building real joint solutions with our partners. And I'll talk more about that later, but something that's truly unique and something that is a real joint solution and not just putting software and hardware or throwing it together and solving a problem. It's a real joint solution. But the third is really around building a world-class ecosystem organization, given a lot of the challenges that the company faces and such. And so the first thing that we actually did, you guys are all probably in different alliance functions, but these companies that we partner with and you guys partner with, they span and touch multiple parts of the companies on both sides. And as a result of it, there's really no clear accountability and such. And so as I took over the alliance function and the ecosystem function, we sat back and said, what should our role really be? And so we went through and kind of came up with a framework that basically says we do about 9 different things with every strategic partner. And those include, who manages the 360, who sets the strategy, who builds the go-to-market programs, who, manages the MDF, who does the engineering roadmaps, and those are some of the 9. And associated with each of the 9, we built a RACI model, real high level. And what should we own? What should the business groups own? What should the geos own? And so we put a lot of structure and discipline over roles and responsibilities, and clearly defining it. So I think that was step 1 in building a world-class organization. 2, is really apparent to what you guys hear, but we have a really good CRM system. We don't have a good partner management system for managing co-sell and multi-partner ecosystem. So we're implementing Workspan. We've been doing it for about a year and a half now, have had amazing success, and the onboarding and everything that you talk about is really useful. And we're starting to onboard more partners and put more solutions on it. And we want to start taking advantage of some of the other capabilities around the co-building of solutions, and we use it a lot for the digitalization and some other elements of it too. So I think second main point of a world-class organization is having a platform. The third is really around clear governance and having a very standard methodology, repeatable, common dashboards, and everything that goes with it. And so with that, we're doing internal meetings probably once a month with most of our top partners, so we can understand what the left arm is doing with the right foot and all the pieces that go with it. Because many of these partners, Microsoft's a great example. I mean, there's thousands of people in my company and Microsoft's company that work together to innovate at the engineering level for the SQL servers and the server OEM. But then we've got a bunch of stuff going on Azure and HCI and all the things that are going with it and stuff. So how do you get the right governance, and even internally figure out what we're doing within HPE? And then once a quarter, we do a quarterly business review to just align with the business partners and such. So that's the third part. And then lastly, continuing to refine and define how we measure this nebulous world of co-sell. And I think as we talk here in a little bit, I think we have a bit of an innovative framework that we've been working on, and I'm happy to share with you guys, because I think it's a really complicated problem, but we don't think we'll get it perfectly right. We're going to make a really big attempt this year at getting it better, but continuing to hone in how you measure, it is the fourth element of our world-class organization.
So David, some really interesting dimensions you pointed out. One is get the organizational and accountability structure. Second is put the right kind of platform. Third is the right kind of governance. Yep. But based upon putting some really compelling offers together, right? Not just vanilla partnering, but compelling offers. So if we double click on these challenges a little bit more, we know one-to-one partnering is pretty hard, and at a large organization like HP, working with a large organization like Microsoft that you said, right, that there are multiple groups that have to work together.
Yep.
And then you combine that with some multi-way partnering. There's also the things that lines of competition are blurring. There is co-opetition that is happening as well. So could you spend some more time talk about how you're addressing those things and what role digitization is helping you play here?
Yeah, no, a great question, and it builds upon a lot of what we're trying to do. So the first, again, the digitization piece. Look, with multi-partners, having a discipline and a structure, a repository, something digital to do dashboard reports, to house our documents, everything enabled, honestly, right now by Workspan. If we didn't have it, we'd be using Excel files, we'd be using SharePoint. And so Workspan is truly enabling us to automate the digital process of everything from the solution build to housing the repositories for a lot of our referral programs, to just tracking the pipeline, which has its own merits. And I think many of the folks on the call are obviously using Workspan and very familiar with it. So I think that's one. You mentioned the one-on-one partnering. Those are really, really hard, right? And the more I've been involved with the ecosystems, the more I've learned that one-to-one are hard, but when you add a third partner, it's exponentially harder. You add a fourth, and it's exponentially even harder than that. I remember hearing a rough example. I'll leave the company name out, but I know a company was trying to do a four-way partnership. And it was 4 different companies. It took them 9 months and they couldn't even get a statement, an NDA signed. It was so complicated. Everybody wanted to change what was allowed and not to be shared. And so you can just imagine, if you can't even get an NDA signed in 9 months, what could you actually accomplish? So how do you continue to manage that? And you've got to get the organizations aligned. And look, I know within HPE we have 60,000 people, and sometimes just getting ourselves aligned internally is a challenge. But then get yourself aligned with another organization, and then add a third organization, and everything from issuing a press release to what we're doing, how we market it, how we incent the people, all just needs to go through an extreme ordinary governance and such. And then you hit a big piece on it, the co-opetition, right? And I know when you guys put the question up, you had us push, what are we, a hardware company, a software company? And we're primarily a hardware company today, but we're really changing a lot. And we've got a software platform we're really, really excited about. So the lines are blurring, and everything we're doing is built around as a service. And when you do everything as a service, it's got financial engineering, it's got metering, it's got everything that you could possibly imagine, and it's providing outcomes. And so we're all getting in each other's places. I know the Bain, McKinsey's, BCGs are all moving from the classic strategy into implementation. People who do classic implementation are trying to do more strategy. And even companies like us, we're starting to hit co-opetition with partners that have container platforms that are out there, and we now have our own container platform. So how we manage and govern that is pretty critical. But the element that I think is probably most exciting here is what we talked about, was the solutions. And we're using a pretty simple framework. I hate to use the win-win type of deal because a lot of people use it, but we're really using what's called a win-win-win. And there's 3 wins, and that win, Ahmed already talked about one of them, but it's the customer. And so the simple framework we're using is really making sure my team and the partners know what's a win for HPE. So we're in it to do certain things. We want to grow the as a service business, but really important for us to educate our partners on what a win is for us. Secondly, we need to understand what a win is for that partner. And I'm pretty convinced that's what most people stop with: a win-win. It's a win for us, it's a win for them, and therefore, both parties are pretty pleased. But the missing piece of a typical win-win is, what's a win for the customer? And that's the element that we're really putting a lens on. And so we're working with partners. We're sharing what's a win for us, our vision, our strategy, to move as a service company. We're wanting to understand them. And then we're saying, what can we do together around joint IP, something different, to give a customer a better outcome? And that's where I'm really, really excited, because, in the old days, you would just take software, run it on our hardware, and either a systems integrator or the client would have to do it. But in the case of VDI, you've got to solve for the security, you've got to solve for the onboarding, you've got to solve for the provisioning of a new device and everything that goes along with it. And so we're working with our partners to say, hey, what's a real win for HPE, and how does HPE make money, and where we want to make money in the future? How does that partner work, and how do they make money? And then we're doing things together that we're really, really excited about. And then at the end of the day, we get a customer outcome that's, better for the customer. So one more rich example is, and I think we've got some folks on from SAP. So this is a good one that we started well over a year ago with SAP, but a win for us was GreenLake, clearly, right? To sell more as a service. As we learned and understood what was driving SAP, is they more and more wanted to become a cloud revenue company. And every dollar of revenue for SAP that was cloud was valued in the market much higher. So it was a really big push to become a cloud company. And so with GreenLake, we've been able to classify that as OpEx and cloud revenue for all along. So we said, look, what could we do together that enables us to get more GreenLake? What enables SAP to get more cloud revenue? But what can we do for the customer? And in this particular case, we've launched SAP HEC Customer Edition with them, that's sold by SAP. And the beauty of this is the customer gets a cloud experience, but doesn't have to go to the public cloud. And so it's a win for us because we get GreenLake. It's a win for SAP because they're getting the cloud revenue, and the customer gets the cloud experience without moving to the cloud. And so it's a great example of real collaboration. There's been a lot of press releases on it. It's solidifying our strategy, and the teams are actively working on both sides to build pipeline to win in the market. And so it's a great example of what I call a win-win-win. And that's what's really driving us. And I think if you all take that, simple philosophy to what you're looking at. And it ties very, very nicely, like I said, with Amit started, right? You got to put the customer at the center. And whatever you're doing as partners is to help that customer make it easier. And in a world of COVID, everything is moving faster. The need for digitization is faster. So the more we can do, the better I think we all can be.
Really great examples, David. And putting customer in the center and having a win-win-win framework is simple, but it clarifies a lot of things from start to end. And that hopefully translates into execution as well, right? As we
Sure does.
execute on these joint offers that are compelling for the customer and compelling for both partners. So as a leader of a large ecosystem team, can you talk a little bit about taking the strategy framework that you just talked about and putting it into execution? What are key execution levers or dimensions that you think about to help HP succeed?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny. As long as I've been around after I left the military, I've always heard of a simple people, process, and technology, and I think it's still at the core of a lot of what we do. So, from a people side, it's really about the mindset and getting people to really understand, what we talked about, the win-win-win, understanding how to embrace the partner spirit, but what can you really do around the people side to create both the compensation and the mindset at which they wake up every day to drive the partnership. The process we've talked a little bit about already, everything from the governance and establishing what a gold standard looks like, and but everything from launching a solution, the more you can solidify it. I'd even think Amit mentioned one of the best practices was a repeatable joint solution. A lot of times in the market, you end up building a one-off, and what some companies, systems integrators, are probably the best at is taking that one-off and scaling it to multiple clients and stuff. But putting a process in place on how to onboard new partners, how to build joint solutions, how to measure pipeline, the more you could do, the better with the process side. And then lastly, and most a very important element is the technology, right? How do you do all of this? And as I mentioned, Workspan is a great, phenomenal platform here that enables digitization of all of that. And so you put those three together, and I think it's it's the critical elements of helping us become a world-class organization, but it's also helping us to go from, really big ideas all the way to execution down to the individual geos that we operate into.
David, on this point of people, process, and systems, you talked about systems as Workspan. I wanted to take a minute and show what a co-sell process could look like, right? So a co-sell process would be a simple business process that executes between two or more partners. And instead of thinking co-sell as just sales collaboration, we can think of it as a structured process where each opportunity goes through different stages of co-selling. So if you click one more, there is the pre-pipeline stages where partners are collaborating with each other to identify, qualify, and then engage with the sales teams and the customer so that opportunities show up in the pipeline. And once the salespeople are done with the closing the opportunity, partnering work doesn't stop. Partnering work has to continue with actions beyond that stage so that they can register a win at the customer, do the right settlement activities between the partners, and then call it a day. And the thought process is this simple business process has to be done over and over again for every opportunity across the portfolio of opportunities and leads that the partnering team is working with. And if you put a structure like this together, then it's a repeatable structured process, can be monitored for status at any point in time, and can be measured and reported upon.
So, Mayank, you said it well. That's exactly what we're doing. Is we institute the process side and putting structure and discipline enabled by the Workspan process. Yep, great.
And so, David, continuing the thought, once you put the process together, then you really want to see how is it working? How much success are we accumulating with partners? What is working? What is not working? And I know this is something that you've spent a lot of time and have developed really sharp insights on at HP. So could you share with the audience how you and your teams are measuring execution against goals?
Yeah, no, it's great, and as long as I've been with the ecosystem group in the last 3 years, the question has come up, and I've asked many companies, how do you measure this influence business, right? The co-sell business, and some companies co-sell is a four-letter word. Some companies avoid it. We've even gone through ebbs and flows and try to deprioritize it. But in the market today with ecosystems, you need to co-sell. You have to be co-selling across the board. So I've used that bit of a consulting background and have come up with this pretty innovative framework, I believe, and I'd love to share it with you guys. And so starting on the left side here, we start with measurements. And so how do we measure it? And we've got three simple buckets right now for how we're measuring it. The first is what we're calling ecosystem sourced, right? Where the partner is bringing us a lead. So I'm going to use an example in a minute, but where we have a joint solution and kind of dimensionalize how this works. But in this particular case, the partner brings us the lead, and that's really valuable. The second one is the ones that we collaborate on together, right? Where we go after it. We believe there's a real opportunity, and we go after it. And the third is where we've already had the opportunity, and in many cases, I think it's endorsed or validated by the partners, and so we've already got the lead. And the validation helps solidify it, but the level of effort and reward are often different. But anyway, those are the three main areas of measurement. I think this is really important because what I've seen is in a lot of partnerships, we might say we do $1 billion with partner X. And within the company, people look at that and kind of snarf at you and say $1 billion, really. And so what we've done is bifurcate, and we measure it in buckets. And so as we build joint solutions, we're measuring the value in these three buckets. So in the course of a year, we might do 100 million with a partner, and we could say 30 million was they brought us leads, 40 million was collaborated in the middle, and 30 million that we kind of endorsed. And so the bifurcation of the number is the key element of measurements. And you guys can use these three or any other ones, but the more you can break it down so that the number is meaningful and not just one big number that's sometimes unmeaningful. And there's clearly more value in certain ones, like the collaboration and the partner source leads are much more valuable to us than something that's validated, but validation helps, right? It helps us close a deal. So that's dimension one, is on measurements. Dimension two is incentives. So what I've often seen is people talk past each other because we mix up two dimensions on incentives. So I'm going to break this down into four components here, but the first is how we pay our people, compensation. And so how do we pay, in this case, the company sellers, but let's assume this is HPE. So how do we pay HPE sellers is dimension one. Dimension two is how we pay the partner sellers, right? So a lot of times we're in a joint solution and we're wrapped around the axle because how are we paying our people, or how is the partner paying their people? So two critical dimensions. The other two have to do with really the economics. And the economics is how does HPE make money in this case? And the second part is how does the partner make money? And so with this really simple framework, you now have a 3x4 matrix. And as you build it out, you look in each square, and in each square, there's a level of effort and there's a level of reward. And originally, as I was preparing this slide for this, I was trying to give an example, but realized I would make it too complicated. So I'm kind of leave it here with this. But let me walk you through an example that we're doing with today and why this, I think, is pretty powerful. So we have a great new offer with Splunk. We've worked it. We've got credible use cases. We're able to provide 17 times the performance of any other system at a significantly reduced cost. And we have something really unique. So it constitutes what I call a joint solution. And what Splunk and HPE are bringing it to market. Now we get an ecosystem play, and we got SIs wanting to play in it. And the systems integrators have really big Splunk practices, and they're all trying to run and help. But where do they fit and how does it go? And in some cases, we've already got it in our pipeline. And so all we want the SI to do is to validate it or tell the company it's great. In many cases, we've got it. We know that it's a big customer of ours, a good customer of the SI, but we got to collaborate to really go after it, to move it. And in some cases, the Splunk or the SI could bring us the lead, and it's really valuable. So in all of these different dimensions, let's just pick on this offer with an SI, would say Splunk. And let's pick an extreme. Let's go to the lower right corner where we already have it in our pipeline. A systems integrator helps endorse it. So let's look at the economics of the partner that's doing that. Pretty low effort, right? All you had to do is say, yeah, HPE solution's really good. We've seen it in action. It's 17 times better. So level of effort is low. And then the question then becomes, what's in it for the partner? Well, do we want to pay partners to help us with that kind of co-sell? In this particular case, no. The effort was low. It's already in our pipeline. And, so there should really be no reward in that lower right corner. But then let's look at the upper right corner for the same thing, right? Where, now let's say the SI brings us a lead. It's a partner that they're big in. They've got a Splunk practice. We've got 50 accounts we're targeting, and they bring us a 51st one. Well, that 51st one, look, level of effort could have been small, medium, or large. I don't know, right? And what they did, but they clearly saw the opportunity, brought it to the customer. The customer says, wow, this is a great outcome. And we now have an additional lead we never had before. In that case, we are absolutely happy to reward the partner for bringing it to us because it's net new, it's incremental. And so we're trying to use this a lot with our partners to make sure that at the end of the year, if we do 100 million with a systems integrator around Splunk, we can break it down. And ideally for us, we want most of it in the first two buckets where either they bring us the lead or we collaborate together. But I don't want to deminimize the bottom row, because a lot of times you need a systems integrator to endorse it or to validate it. And so what we get on the left side is, kind of the different types of measurements that we deal with. And then incentives, I see a lot of people, they talk about it, but sometimes we mix up how a company makes money and how a partner gets paid and how we pay our sellers and how we sell quota. But all of it really boils down to the incentives. And then there's an effort and reward. So in the perfect world, this is kind of like a three-dimensional matrix, like a Rubik's Cube. And when you have an offer, you could be very black and white with the partners and say, look, if you're working on an endorsed, validated lead, we're not going to pay you, right? But we really like your help. And in the middle, the ecosystem collaborated. We're both working on it. And we should be getting more revenue, but they should get more services revenue too. And I'll use one partner's words, the payment should be the pipeline generated for the SI and the pipeline generated for us. And so there doesn't have to be an exchange. Where there has to be an exchange is when there's net new incremental. And so in the upper right corner, bringing us a new lead for something that we've got a great offer on was never contemplated, and we should be happy and excited to reward the partner. So anyway, so as I work through this, and we're implementing it now in our fiscal year, and I've shared it with Workspan and some other companies, it seems to hit on the root causes as to why measurement of cell width is really hard, because not all flavors of influence are the same. So we've bucketed them. And when people talk about the incentives, they mix up, without knowing it, compensation and economics. And then, the problem we get with it is sometimes there's a low, medium, and high level of effort, and sometimes the reward is low, medium, and high. So there's no cookbook answer. I think every solution, every partner could use a grid like this and kind of fill it out. And you establish very clear rules. You bring us a lead, we're going to pay you. If you help us down in this bottom row, no payments made. But in the middle, no payment should be made, because both sides are really advancing a cause. So anyway, it's our new innovative framework. I think it's an emerging, model that we're really excited about, that I think can help solve the industry-wide dilemma of how to measure the co-sell business.
Yeah, David, this framework is very insightful, and I definitely think you're onto something here. It structures the collaboration and the value exchange that happens with partnering very cleanly with the incentives and economics. So this could indeed be a breakthrough point of view. At this point, let me open it up to the audience and see what their thoughts and comments are.
David, Mayank, that was fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, we do have, actually, we have a bunch of questions that have come in, but we're also a little bit over time. Why don't we, I think let's do one of the questions, I think, let's see. Michael Thomas said, it sounds like value to the deal could also be additional components in the reward assessment, although value to the deal is more subjective.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's funny because as I've wrestled with every shade of gray of influence, right? Sometimes you can win a $10 million deal with pick up a phone call. Sometimes you can work 1,000 hours and get $1 million deal, right? So you definitely have to, like I said, I was actually trying to fill this out with happy faces, green check marks, something to keep it simple for this group. The more I tried to vet it with people, the more I confused people. So again, it's a framework, right? A consultative thing that came from my management consulting days. But I think if you just think about it, you can. I absolutely think value could be one of the dimensions on there, and you bring us a higher value deal, and it clearly. Sometimes the reward that we're going to pay our partners is based on the deal value. So sometimes the reward is going to be proportional based on a percentage.
It's fantastic. So, and by the way, there are questions, but there are also a lot of comments. Love the highlights around compensation versus economic impact. Interesting co-sell incentivization framework from David Stone, and so really great comments. And this was a terrific session.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to share that. I think hopefully it's taken me years to come up with it and solve what I think might be a very helpful way to break down a pretty complicated problem. But I wish all of you guys a happy holiday, happy New Year, and I'm always available if anybody would like to chat about this framework or anything else. So, yeah.
Indeed. Thank you, David, for this session and the sharing of interesting ideas.